do want to recognize Tim Boyd. Commissioner Tim Boyd came in. I see Councilman Darren Ledford. If you guys have any energy left by the time we get through this, he may want to announce the good news. There's no tax increase being proposed in the city. And then Debbie Baker, I think I missed her. She's here. She serves on the Collegedale Commission as well. Thank you for being here. I'd like to call up Joe Wingate. He's going to talk about the Department of Education budget, get a little more into specifics. And let me just say this about Joe Wingate. Joe Wingate, for me, has been a godsend. He has truly been a great partner to work with. He and I talk on a regular basis. And he and I have two very different roles that we serve in. And so, as the mayor said, the school board, they have very tough decisions. Their focus is around our greatest resources, our teachers, our students, and all the decisions that go into that. And he does a great job. So, no further ado, Joe Wingate.
Good evening, guys. I'm going to hit the highlights here, and I want to give you plenty of time to ask questions. And the mayor is right. He said he wouldn't want to be a school board member. In full disclosure, I never wanted to be one either. But I'm a lifetime educator. Just finished my 21st year, and I spent a decade in our school system, late 90s and early 2000s. And again, for full disclosure, I left that school system because I was pretty jaded. I was pretty burnt out. And I was pretty tired. And but I also had an opportunity to pursue some things that I enjoy doing, and some college coaching and teaching, and some of you who have come maybe in some debates and things as I was running for this seat have heard me say that I was quick to criticize. I was quick to point and laugh and mock and make fun of when it came to our school system, and rightly so, because they gave me a lot of opportunities to do it. And but I got 3 little guys in my house. Oldest just turned 9. I got twins that are 7. I've got Irish triplets, I guess. They're all a year and a half apart. And we were going somewhere. This was almost 4 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's gone that fast. And something had come out about scores, and we'd had pitiful scores, and nobody knew about it. And the news had found out and asked the superintendent, and he didn't want to talk about it and slammed the door. It was just, and I was complaining, and my wife just said, "What are you going to do about it?" Now, I don't know how many of you here are married to a woman like that, but it was like she punched me right between the eyes. Because as a man, you don't want to hear your wife challenge you like that. And I said, I don't know, but I have to do something. I don't know what that looks like. I got the best job I've ever had. I'm an assistant professor of PE at Chattanooga State. If you don't know what PE stands for, it stands for pretty easy. And I love my job. I get to spend more time with my family than I ever have. Great flexibility at that level. And I was coaching in college and loving what I was doing. And I thought, Lord, I don't want to go back in the public school system. I don't want to go back in the classroom. I don't want to be a principal or assistant principal. Lord knows that's the hardest job in the school system is being a principal. And anybody tells you anything different is lying to you. It's the hardest job in education. Is to lead a building because you're never off. And I just kind of tried to talk to some people, and people said, you ever thought about the school board? And I've never had any desire to hold an elected office, never had any desire to see my name on a sign, stand up and politic and ask people to vote for me. No desire to do that, but I know that's why God asked me to do it. Because it's not comfortable. And so it wasn't comfortable the first month. Dealing with the mess that we were dealing with. It wasn't comfortable dealing with not having leadership that we felt like we could trust. Wasn't comfortable dealing with a bus accident, a bus company that really didn't care about whether they were in this community or not. And it felt real good to ask that same administration to know you're going to present us a balanced budget. That's what you're going to do because you hadn't done that in a long time. And we're going to show that we're good stewards of what we have. and we're going to try to produce some results with that. And then it felt real good to hire a new superintendent. And I will tell you, because I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last year and a half, he didn't anticipate being here either. He didn't. He'll tell you, had a great job where he was. Things were going good. It was rolling. Life was good. Just moved into the house he thought he would retire in. And next thing he knows, he's in a new place with a family, trying to adjust, trying to figure it out. And but we have the right leader. I was very, very, very unsure of hiring a 34-year-old to lead the school system. Thought this guy's a rookie. What's he going to be able to tell me? And but he is sharp. He's very sharp, and he is very sensitive to the area that he has moved to and what this place has been through. But I'm excited about who we've got leading us, and I'm excited about the fact that even last year he presented a budget that was $1 million under the year before, and created $11 million worth of efficiencies to get the state of Tennessee. You guys see, nobody wants to talk about that. State of Tennessee went away. We're not dealing with that anymore because we got a leader that came in and said, here's our strategy for getting these schools where they need to be. We don't need you guys here. That went away. And has done a great job. And regardless of what you hear, central office is not ballooning. Now, are there new titles in central office? Absolutely. Are there new job descriptions in central office? Absolutely. There are no new monies being spent in the central office. Jobs have been repurposed. People who have been retired, there have been money taken from those jobs and added to other jobs to acquire talent to help get us where we need to be. We had no communication department whatsoever. The newspapers, everybody else was telling our story. We weren't able to tell our own story. As the mayor said, we got some great students in Hamilton County. We got some great teachers in Hamilton County. Our superintendent came in and said, we're going to control the story. We're going to tell our own narrative. We're going to expound on the good things that are happening. And we're also going to talk about the bad things that are happening. We're not going to hide from it. And so I'm excited about where we are. And I will say one quick thing about that's the second time I've heard about spending $1 million on a bus. Nobody acquired any new funds to go get a new bus company. The administration felt it pertinent and important enough to change bus companies that they came to us with a recommendation that was $1 million more. So any of you that run an organization or a business know, then what do you have to do? You got to make $1 million worth of cuts somewhere else. So there's no new added funds or monies, however it gets spun in the media. So I want to hit the high points quickly. One big part of this budget is teacher raises. And I've had some phone calls on that. Hey, why are we giving teachers raises? I mean, I never worked in an organization where I got a 5% raise. Well, it's not about giving a teacher a raise to give them a raise. It's about working in a marketplace in capitalistic America where you have to be competitive. Polk County pays beginning teachers more than we pay. Okay? Now, cost of living. Also, cost of driving to Sam's Club because there's nowhere to buy groceries. Because I know folks that run a camp out there and they drive an hour one way once a month. So now we pass them up later on, but Dade County pays more, Catoosa County pays more, Bradley County pays more. So and you can spend all the things you want to spend as far as that goes, but if you want quality teachers in the classroom and you want students to get a quality education, the teacher's the number one driver of that. And we got to be competitive in the marketplace because if we're not going to keep them. Now, contrary to popular belief, and I'm one of those folks, money's not the biggest motivating factor. It's quality of life. It's quality of life in the workplace, and that brings me to the second piece of that, which would be guidance counselors, special ed teachers, and also social workers. Now, do I agree with the fact that the Board of Education used to mean more than one thing? Absolutely. And it does not get spared at my house. You must drive the foolishness far from a child. But just because I want it to be that way doesn't mean that the other 250,000 people are going to raise their children that way. And what I do want as a teacher is to be able to go into a room as a professional and do what I've been paid to do and trained to do and educated to do. And when knuckleheads continue to mess that up every day, then we need some help. We need some help. And so, now, does that mean that those children are banished forever and aren't deserving of an education? No, it's not. But we've got to, in this day and age, be able to provide an alternate environment where students are able to go and learn, and also learn how to appropriately interact in the classroom with their peers. Because the state mandates that we have to educate them, because we have to. We don't get to send them, there's nowhere else to send them. We don't get to send them somewhere else. Guidance counselors, I will say this. Guidance counselors, their role is to be a counselor. That's their professional counselor. And whether you think we need them or we don't need them, what I will tell you is that right now in the county, across the county, we have one counselor for every 1,500 students. That's the hard number. At East Hamilton Middle School, you can go over there for the middle school. There are 900 students at East Hamilton Middle School. There's one guidance counselor. Now, again, whether you think students should be dealing with the issues they're dealing with, we can have many debates on that. The bottom line is they are. And on top of dealing with traditional counseling issues, those guidance counselors all have to delve into scheduling and many other issues that go along with a school building. Special education. We have lost a pretty significant lawsuit in the last 2 or 3 years around special education because we were not doing it very well at all. We were actually antiquated in our special education approaches. And state mandates some inclusive practices, and we are nowhere close to being able to do that from a personnel standpoint. As a biology teacher almost 20 years ago, if I had a biology course, and they were mainstreaming special needs students, I always had a special educator in the room who dealt with the IEPs for the 6 or the 8 or the 10 special needs students who were in there with me. It was not my job. They made those modifications along with me. They helped me with that. We have numerous teachers across the county. I had a young boy who played on my little 7-year-old's baseball team this year. She teaches science at Tyner Middle School. She had 28 students in the class, 8 of them special needs, no special ed help. None. And guys, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. Now, we can debate all day long about why we're here and how we got here, but the fact is that's where we are. I will also say, and I'll hit on this, it's not part of the budget, but that number about deferred maintenance gets thrown around a whole lot, 240 million or whatever. And we've got a facilities assessment that's going to come back here at the end of the summer, and it's going to be a big number. It's going to be a big number. It's going to be probably $500 million. A lot of people go, well, you're just going to use that to ask for more money. No. That's a tool. Because as the mayor said, we need to close some school buildings. We just do. It's not frugal. It doesn't make financial sense to keep some of these buildings open. But when you have a third party come in who's a national expert and says, you don't need to keep putting good money after bad because this building's falling apart, we're just another tool to go, guys, we got to close some buildings. But what I will say on that is 79 school buildings, many of you in here will know this, 22 years ago, 2 systems merged. And I keep begging the superintendent to do this. How much of that deferred maintenance are from city-owned school buildings that had not been taken care of in decades? And I don't know when the last time the city built a school. I want to say Hickson High School, when they built the pods, 60-something. I went to Tyner High School, that main hallway, any Tyner grads in here? My grandparents went to school over there. So we're dealing with some stuff that we absorbed and acquired. Now, that doesn't mean it's okay just keep throwing money at it, but we've got to figure out a way to get around those, and closing buildings is going to help us do that. Lastly, I just want to hit on also just post-secondary real quick. And I know this will be new for a lot of you, but bottom line is we talk about workforce development, you talk about VW, you talk about some of these other companies, Stomp, some of these others who've really invested in what we're doing. When they come, they want to know what the workforce is going to be like. So much so that they've instituted their own academies. I was fortunate enough to be able to teach in the Volkswagen Academy 3 springs ago. They needed PE. They don't have PE in the Volkswagen plant. They go to school in the plant. They do everything over there. They eat over there. They get trained over there. They do their English, do their math. They didn't have any PE, so I took PE to those folks. Our superintendent has a pretty ambitious, I think it's also a pretty ambitious goal of being able to offer 5 post-secondary opportunities to every high school student before they graduate. Now, that can be many things. It could be an AP class, could be an IP, could be dual enrollment where they're after school, but they're taking a course through Chattanooga State or UTC. But it's also workforce development. And it's also allowing students to be able to either acquire an associate's degree and or a certification, a workforce certification that when they walk out the door as a welder or as someone who studied mechatronics, they walk into a living wage job. And that's doable. It's being done around the country. And this place is blowing up economically. You all know that. There's no reason why we can't do that. Can't do that. So those are the things that are going on with the budget. I will take any questions that you might have until Ms. Sabrina gives me the hook. Mr. Babcock.
Joe, I know the first time I voted for you, you didn't have all that gray hair. And thanks for answering most of the questions I had. The only comment I have a wife that just retired. I have 2 children teaching in the school system, and they all have the same thing. My wife gets she got $100 a year for her classroom. 20 kids. That's $5 a kid, and that's over a year. That's 45 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents a month. I know we talk about it's for the kids, it's for the classroom. Can the teachers get more than $100 a year to spend? I mean, because hey, I'm a retired soldier. I know how to do 2 things: that's blow stuff up and kill people. I can't,
And work on air conditioning.
I can do that too, not anymore. I retired. But, I spent probably easily at the beginning of the school year, $400 to $500 on the things that she was going to need for that year. And then probably through the year, you spend a lot more. Kids don't have stuff. You buy it because their parents don't care. I wish you could find a way to get their parents to care about their own kids. But the only thing
I'm open to suggestions on that.
I don't know.
Well, George, let me say a couple things. One, the $100 is not county. That's state money. That's BEP money every year. Like as a high school teacher, hey, you got your BEP money. What do you want to do with it? So I had options as far as what I wanted to purchase for my classroom for the year. It had to be supplies and things of that nature. One thing I will say that hasn't been talked about much in this proposed budget is an elimination of school fees because of the burden that it places on some. And if that were to take place, and again, when we talk about this budget, I don't know how much of this budget or if any of it will be funded. But those are the things that our leader and as a school board, we've said, you know what, we've been here long enough. We've been here with you. We've seen what's going on. Yeah, we need those things. Maybe there's an opportunity that instead of elementary school teachers asking for every kid to bring in a bottle of hand sanitizer and 3 rolls of paper towels and however many crayons and scissors and tapes and glues, that we can start to make progress towards that. Yes, sir. Mr. Kelman.
Just to circle back to the question I brought up earlier, I think you did a great job describing the needs of the school system as a whole. So my concern, and I know I don't have to tell you, where places where we have gotten the short end of the stick out here, how can we be assured that if we take more tax money from this community that we see that invested back in? I could tell you story after story of things that have been just embarrassing in terms of facilities or staff not being funded or things being asked of staff that are lawsuits waiting to happen because they are being asked to do 200% of what they're supposed to do. And so just to sum that up is how can we be sure, if you could allay my concern, that for our district in particular, that we are going to see out of the new budget what our portion of the county should be seeing.
Yes, sir. One of the things that I'm most excited about that had not happened, and it's just one of the areas where I think our school system was performing poorly, was there was no staffing model for the county school system. Staffing was pretty much determined by school building principals. And so what would happen many times is, regardless of drops or increases in enrollment, a principal calls down to the human resources department and says, hey, I've lost an Algebra 1 teacher, I'm going to need to hire another one, and they give them the okay. There was no centralized staffing model to go, well, hang on a minute, before we do that, let's take a look at your increases or your decreases in enrollment and things of that nature. So that's one thing that Dr. Johnson and his staff have instituted that I'm extremely thankful for, because that was a mess. And then the other thing, and Commissioner Smedley can speak to this later, but as far as facilities go, or Commissioner Fairbanks, was it a resolution, or how is that worded, where there will be no more school buildings built?
A resolution.
A resolution without facilities. So, for example, there'll be no need for a benevolent, there'll be no need for a benevolent benefactor to pay for a track anymore. So that's kind of where we're going with that. Did I answer that for you?
If I could ask one thing.
Yes, sir.
Related to that, because I'm basically telling you what I hear parents complain about, and I try to be the voice of reason to them, but you raised, yes, it's great that the new middle school is going to be done, it's going to be done right. You know, there are still things for the high school, for instance, as well as other schools in our district that need to be fixed or need to be done. And I know there are parents that, while I see it is definitely a step in the right direction, that we're doing the new middle school right, they say, well, why are we not getting it here too? And they don't see, you know, they don't see their money getting spent on things that are obviously broken. And so it is good that we are trying to do it right for the future, but the things that are broken, if we see a bigger budget, I hope that we will see those things that are broken or not done being fixed, because otherwise people are going to be like, where's the money going? And that's where conspiracy theories and things like that can start.
Well, I will also say, in regards to leadership at that school, I have seen already more engagement with community. So hopefully those things don't just get communicated at community meetings quarterly, but they get communicated, daily through email, phone calls, whatever, to building leadership also. But thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Roger Meyer. I'm Dr. Roger Meyer because I have a PhD. But my wife was a teacher at Bestie Shepherd Elementary for 20 years. She went there on purpose because she wanted to teach in its Title I school, which meant that most of the kids, over half the kids, got free lunches. When she died, there were 300 plus people at her memorial because she did an excellent job. But it took a lot of effort on her part and a lot of money from what I was earning to pay for all those excess things. She was spending about $1,000 a year on her classroom. And that's okay, I was making good money. But I think what's important is to recognize two things. One, there are parents who don't know about what education means. And we have to try to appeal to them to learn about that. And we have to also educate people about that. I bet none of you can say that your great-grandfather was a Hauptlehrer. In Germany, that was a head teacher, i.e. the principal of a Lutheran school. But I can claim that. But for that reason, education's always been important. The other thing I want you to challenge you with, if we don't educate our young people now, who's going to take care of us someday? We are taking care of those who are coming after us, and we've got to have them educated. I grew up in a little rural village. We had 120 students in our high school. That wasn't much of an education. I learned it when I went to college. But we've got to have people learn so that they can be able to move forward and assist us. A lot of you folks are probably retired like I am. Who's going to take care of you in that nursing home? Think about that.
Mr. Boyd.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. How are you?
Took a lot of notes.
Good.
Let's see how well we get them answered. Coppinger, we're in the top 4 districts in the state for spending for students.
They can't hear you.
Can they hear me now?
Yeah, let me say one thing. If you have to leave, my contact information is at the bottom of the agenda. I want to hear from you, on whether or not you support the proposed budget.
Per the Hamilton County Department of Ed website, we spend $9,967 per student. That's higher than the average of Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South, North Carolina, and Kentucky. Can you explain that? While we're always saying we need more money, our academic performance is lower. We're in the bottom third of the state in academic performance overall.
Have been, yes,
We are.
have been.
We're moving in the direction.
That's right.
We're the best of a bad lot, that's what we're saying. And and the Tennessee is in the bottom third of the state ranking. So we're in the bottom third of the bottom third. And we're spending more per student than the average around us in states. Why? I think we have adequate funding to move forward. The sequestered assessment scores that the public's not privy to, you say they're going to show improvement. I expect to show improvement, and that improvement needs to go along with adequate funding that's right now. Mayor Coppinger said $9 million.
Did you want to answer that question?
I do want to answer that question. How do we justify spending more per student than our neighboring states and neighboring counties?
I don't know that we did. I'd like to see that.
It's on your website. You can go
No.
to the website.
No, I'm talking about the other neighboring counties and states. That's not on our website.
You can go to the website. Anybody.
I can go to our website. Yeah, we'll get together. Let's, you and I
You go
find
to
it.
the internet just like I did, and you find out the school
No, what-
budget for Knox County, the average.
I got that. Do you want me to answer that or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I will get together.
No, go to the website and find it for yourself. That's what I did. That's what I did. I spend a lot of time looking at the numbers. Now, you said just a moment ago, there's no additional funding going to the administrative office yet.
I don't think that's what I said.
Well, I wrote it down here. No
You
added
talking about-
funds.
You talk about in this budget?
Yes.
That's not what I said.
No added funds or monies for
That's not what I
administration.
said.
What did you
I
say?
said, you've heard a lot of stories about what's been added already. It's not. That's not accurate. Now, that's what I
No
said.
money being spent in the central office.
I didn't talk about,
Without the new budget, is that what you're saying?
correct,
Okay,
correct,
okay, let's make that clear then.
Redistribution of funds.
correct.
Redistribution of funds. Well, on your proposed budget, can you justify the $400,000 discretionary fund for your business officers? No. Can you justify increasing the PR budget from $250,000 to $450,000?
Absolutely.
Why? Why do you need $500,000 for PR for 5 full-time employees? PR.
Because we deal with informational sources that are inaccurate. And so, in order to do that, there's no organization that has a $400 million budget, 6,000 employees, that doesn't have a communications department. I mean, we just hired a new bus company that has a larger communications department than we do.
Yeah, but your communications over the last year under Dr. Johnson looked phenomenal.
That's because we increased the communication department.
$250,000 was budgeted in 2019, and you're wanting more than double that this year. Why?
Okay, so
You don't need it.
how do you
I don't
know?
think-
Whoa, now, you don't, well, you don't think we do. You don't
You
think,
haven't justified it to me, or I doubt if you justified it to anybody here.
I don't need to justify that. We have an administration who's doing a phenomenal job and says we need to increase our communications department. And you just said, I don't think, and you're right to think that way.
And I'm the one that's gonna vote on funding
Hey, have at it.
it. And why-
That's not my lane to vote, and I'm not
Line
here.
item this budget.
Have I line itemed it?
Yeah.
No.
No, you haven't.
No.
Well, I have, and there's $34 million to cut without touching any academic programs.
Well, I tell you what, and what you should have done, Commissioner Boyd, is when we put out a all call for superintendents, you should have put your name in the hat.
I would, but people like yourself say I'm not an educator.
I've never talked to you about whether you're an educator or not.
Educators.
Matter of fact, when I ran, if you recall, when I ran, I said I'd like to see a business person be our
We have adequate
superintendent.
funding. You need to look at the budget. It's online, go to HCDE and look for proposed 2020 budget. Go to pages 60 through 98. You'll see every penny they propose to spend. I will say this, Dr. Johnson is doing a good job and he's very open with his numbers. They just need a school board that questions the numbers and a public that understands that they've got adequate funding. Thank you, Sabrina, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One, I'm a special education teacher. This is my 18th year, and I will not teach in Hamilton County because you don't pay it.
Stay here, put the microphone close to you.
Here, I don't need it.
Repeat that. I didn't hear
Okay,
it.
I've been teaching. I got two things. I've been teaching for 18 years. I live in Hamilton County, but I will not work in Hamilton County because they don't pay enough. Two, I was told to ask why Unified Ed is involved in local politics and in the school board.
Unified Ed is not involved in the school board. They are involved in local politics. They're an organization that shrouds themselves as an advocate for public education, and they are not. They are a political action group. They have zero influence on our school administration. They have zero influence on our school board.
Thank you. Ms. Wingate, appreciate your service to the school board and certainly Mayor Copter and Spring and the rest that are here. There's a couple questions that would help me. I will have to say I came in against a tax increase. I've heard some things that may help me make a more informed decision, maybe even for some things. But there's some numbers that would help me to make a more informed decision. For instance, how many students did we have in 2010? What was the school budget in 2010? What is the number of students in 2018? What was the school budget in 2018? Then that would let me look and see what's the increase in the number of students, what was the increase in the budget. Then I can compare that against inflation, and then I can sort of see where we've been for the last 8 years. The same would be true as it relates to the county budget. I just would like to see where all these increases, because I know we had the millage increase, we've had property values. I think, Mayor, you mentioned $4 billion in investments. I assume much of that was in property, therefore property taxes. If I can see those sorts of numbers, then I'm able to make a more informed decision. Right now, I don't have that.
I've got them from 2015 to today, if you'll stick around.
Okay, good. And then, did I hear correctly, 81% of the school budget goes to teachers? Did I hear that correct? People, so that's personnel, 81% goes to personnel. Okay, all right, that's good to hear as far as that goes. Now, the mayor mentioned about Rutherford County, and you mentioned as well as it relates to a number of buildings that we have, and you're right, the school dumped, or the city dumped on the school system, the county, a lot of buildings a long time ago, probably need to be mothballed. Can the county commission, when it comes time to pass a budget, and I know you mentioned that there's a study coming up, and the school superintendent hopefully get together and commit that you're going to take a lot of these buildings out of service. Again, if you're showing me you're making some efforts, and again, I don't know the school superintendent, I've heard wonderful things, and that's great. We need someone like that in that position. But if I can see that you're all working together and you are taking my tax dollar into account, that will help. Lastly, what percent, right now, based upon where the numbers are, what percent would be attributed to the school system as it relates to increase? What percent is due to the sheriff department? And what percent is to EMTs? That, again, numbers, engineer, sorry, but that does help me in terms of what we would be looking at. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Sabrina, and Joe. I retired here to Chattanooga 10 years ago. I retired from the federal government in Washington, and I belong to the National Association of Retired Fed Employees. And everywhere when I was looking for a retirement home, just praised Chattanooga as being a wonderful place for retirees, cost effective. And as I said, I've been here 10 years, and With this tax increase, proposed tax increase, and what I received 2 years ago, Sabrina had told me that I would not be getting, I was assured that I would not be raised, that my taxes would be raised. I had a reassessment, and then 2 weeks later, I got the tax increase. So, you know, I'm not poor. I'm not a poor retiree by any stretch. But, you know, money is money, and it's getting harder and harder all of the time. And when I look at this, when I looked at Chattanooga, I was proud to move here. It was such a green, had become such a green city and everything else. And then, you know, about the voucher system, I don't understand why that was, Hamilton County was exempt from that, it was lobbied, and I think that would have helped a lot as well. The other thing is, you know, we keep hearing for the years that I've been here all about the lottery system, how it's helping the schools. Where is that money going to? It just seems like all of these things are falling on the backs of the property owners. You know, I live in a subdivision not too far from here. I have the smallest townhome, and I pay more taxes since in the last 2 years than some of the people who have much larger townhomes than I. And I just don't understand this. As I said, I retired from the federal government. I studied budget. I'm a master's graduate. I'm a nurse, but I also studied, you know, public administration. And so I studied budgets a lot. And for Mr. Mayor, there are no private meetings. Everything is always released. So bear that in mind. You know, I've worked at a lot of meetings, both at the Pentagon and also in Medicare. So I'm just very concerned for myself and for my neighbors and for other retirees who are in the same boat as me, maybe even have less money than I have. And for me to have, you know, another increase of possible 17% on top of what I had, that's close to a 30% increase on me. And I don't get an increase on my retirement, on my pension, or anything else. And, you know, it's just, you know, I get a 401k, and that's added to my pension and Social Security, and I'm taxed. And so, you know, it's like it's going out the window all of the time. So I just hope that you take those considerations, you know, into the fact that, you know, the property owners and then also retirees. I mean, as I said, you know, I mean, there are some communities that if you're over the age of a certain age, you know, retirees are not, you know, part of that, of a budget increase. Now, granted, there's a lot of wealthy retirees who could afford it. I'm not one of those, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I am concerned about that. And I think you all do a great job. You know, I think that the schools, I wish the teachers got a better salary. I have friends that are teachers. They don't get a good salary. I'm a nurse. I don't think nurses get good salaries either. So, you know, those of us that work in the community, we don't get good salaries. So, does anybody else?
I think you got some other questions. I wanted to say this to you. If you recall, back in 2017, when there was a tax increase, and I know the mayor indicated it was about 2/3, but I think everybody in this district just about got one because you saw an increase in your property value. But what we did initially, and I'll take you back in time, is we passed a balanced budget without a tax increase initially. We came back in September, and that's when we set the millage rate, kept it where it was at, and you all ended up getting an increased tax bill. So when I told you your taxes had not been raised, it had not been initially. It's when we came back in September that changed.
I'll make this quick. First off, just observation, I'm surprised to see that the audience here tonight, where are our millennial parents? Where are these young folks that have the children in the school? Why are they not engaged here tonight? I just don't understand. I guarantee when I get home, my daughter and son, they're going to hear about it. When my daughter was in private school, we were required by the school to participate within the school. Should we not also do something like that with the public schools? We had fundraisers, we volunteered, we did things. A lot of times I was so busy, I just handed them some money and told them, I'm too busy working, and so here's some money, do what you gotta do. Now, these surplus schools that are being closed down, what is the plans for those schools?
Well, it will depend on one, you know, kind of the overall condition of the building. I mean, you know, is that something that can be used later on? Is that something that needs to be sold? Now, I mean, I could get you in touch with our facilities and maintenance director, and he could probably give you some more detailed information. But I mean, it would be, now you have an asset, just like any other piece of property that you have an asset, that do you need to repurpose that, or do you need to sell that asset, use those funds for something else?
Well, I was suggesting that today's real estate market is competitive as it is, and my goodness, what properties are bringing, that any county properties, whether it be city or other buildings, if they're not being used, as far as repurposing them, we could look at that at a later date. Let's sell those buildings now while the real estate market is high and put that money into the schools. Let's just don't be sitting on buildings and paying maintenance costs and insurances and utilities, and it goes on, as you know. So I would encourage the mayor and the school board to look at all the buildings, and let's sell those that we don't need and put that money to work.
Well, again, and that report should be coming back here either the end of July or, is that right? 1st of August. I know it's the summer, but, so pretty detailed report of where all our facilities are.
Now, will that be made public?
Oh, yes, sir. It's everything we do business-wise.
I'm gonna get you your own personal call.
Yeah, you know I'll be buzzing you here, I always do.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Let's give Joe Wingate a hand.